Over 2,800 people have made it into the Two Comma Club by making at least $1 million in their business. And you get the opportunity to understand exactly how it is that they have done it on an individual by individual basis through this podcast. If you're interested in learning more about the tidbits and advice that they have, then you should consider subscribing to the Two Comma Club newsletter, where you'll get daily updates and advice on the podcast and the things that we are learning from the individuals who have made at least $1 million. Just go to 2ccnewsletter.com or click the link in the description down below and subscribe.
My approach to business is freedom faced first. Like, I know what it is like to not have any freedom. Like, I know what it is like to make every single decision due to lack of money, to feel completely and utterly trapped, to feel like you're suffocating because you don't have options. And to me, the most important thing, and I think for a majority of entrepreneurs, particularly in the online world, what we want is not to have $100 million company. What we want is to be able to make enough money to where we can do what we want to do, when we want to do it, with who we want to do it, doing work that we find impactful, and to where we don't have to worry about finances on a daily basis. That's it. I believe that money runs in networks, right? Like, in everything that I've studied before, like, I was just in a broke network. I was in a network of people that did not have money, a network of beginners. And then I found Brad, and Brad's rich, and all of Brad's friends are rich, right? And I was like, oh, so I don't need to have marketing. I don't need to be everywhere. I need to be in front of the right people. And so relationships and networking became the key element of how I approach business. And the Golden Mike method is essentially that. It's strategic relationships. It's a strategic approach to getting in networks of money and success with people that you want to do business with.
Welcome back to the Two Comma Club podcast. Today, Chris and I are joined here with Josh Forti. Josh, can you go ahead and introduce yourself to our audience here and let them know kind of what you're up to and what it is that you've done in your entrepreneurial journey to get the Two Comma Club award?
Absolutely. Well, thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. Looking forward to having some fun here. My name is Josh Forti. I am the host of the Golden Mike podcast and founder of the Golden Mike method. I have been in the entrepreneurship world for probably a decade now, coming up on a decade, I think. I mean, I've been an entrepreneur, I think, my whole life. My first entrepreneurship thing was selling chocolate chip cookies on the side of the road after, selling lemonade, and was like, what else can I sell? Right. But actually in business for myself and as an entrepreneur for about 10 years. I'm not one to like talk about all of my stuff without context, but since you asked, I'll give you the brief highlight reel of it. I started in the Instagram space after a bunch of failed attempts at trying to do entrepreneurship, right? But kind of right place, right time after failing for a few years, and hit it big in the Instagram world. Grew and managed about 7 million followers for clients in that space. We had a very large network, probably between 80 and 100 million, like network of accounts that we were part of. Ended up parting ways with my business partner there. All good things. There wasn't like a huge falling out or anything. Just decided to go separate ways. Got into more traditional marketing, social media marketing. Found Brunson, and over the next couple of years there, helped my clients make probably about $10 million at that time before me making my first million. Right, so I was still broke, but figured out how to help other people. Right, and then one thing led to another. Had some setbacks in life. My brother passed away in a helicopter crash. My wife got very, very sick, almost died for a minute there, and then came back with a podcast. And so we grew Think Different Theory, my podcast, to 1.5 million downloads in about 2 years before getting sued by Apple for trademark infringement, which was crazy. And won a Two Comma Club, and then another Two Comma Club. We've got another Two Comma Club coming, and hopefully 2 this year. Fingers crossed, but we'll see. So anyway, in a nutshell, that's who I am. And I'm a Christian. I'm married to my beautiful, amazing wife, and we just had our first daughter 7 months ago.
Awesome. I love hearing about your roots and hear your faith background. John and I both have an awesome faith background. That's real important to us. But something I was really wanting to dig in, just a personal level. You grew up kind of humble. You didn't start out in a business family, it sounds like, multi-million-dollar family. You got some humble roots, which I was excited about because I have some humble roots, blue-collar family. If you don't mind, just for a second, just dive in, talk about you kind of where you were born, your upbringing, to give kind of a background for our folks, that would be helpful.
Yeah, for sure. So I think we as entrepreneurs, I think we're probably just wired a little differently, right? I used to think that everybody could be an entrepreneur, and that was like entrepreneurship's the best. Everybody should go do it. But I think we're just wired differently, right? And I know I was born in Wisconsin, but at age 1, I moved to Los Angeles, lived there from age 1 to age 11. And don't remember much of that because it was, I was young. But then at age 11, I would move to a farm in Indiana. And I grew up on a farm, like working family. My dad drove a semi truck. My mom was a homeschool, stay at home mom with 8 kids. So I grew up homeschooled on the farm in the middle of nowhere in a cornfield, right? And you get up at 5 or 6 a.m. every single morning to milk the goats and take care of the pigs and the cows and the chickens, right? And you did it twice a day, right? And I think that even back then though, like I had this just deep desire to be free. What I'm talking about? Like, that feeling, right? And I think as entrepreneurs, like we don't really know how to describe it at the time. We still don't even know how to describe it sometimes, really, right? But it was like this feeling of, I don't know any different than this, so I don't know what else is out there, but I know this isn't it, right? Like I know that there's got to be something more here. I know that like I can't be bound by the limitations that everybody else is bound by, right? And so growing up on the farm, I learned, and I have nothing bad to say about my life growing up, right? Like I learned work ethics and morality, and how to look somebody in the eye and shake their hand and like take someone at their word, right? And have your reputation be everything. And also, that's just a different world, right? It's one limited version of all the potential possibilities of the world, right? And so I did grow up there, and I always say the fact that my parents, stayed together, taught us morality and hard work. Like they didn't teach me money, they didn't teach me a lot of a lot of things, but like they taught me the important stuff, right? And so in entrepreneurship, that incredible work ethic has been the thing. Like I'll just like not as a pride point, by the way, like. I don't like want to, I'd rather not hustle nonstop, right? But like I will just outwork you because I don't come from money. I don't have a billionaire Rolodex. I don't have any special talents. I'm not, 6'5" and athlete, right? Like I don't have any special edge per se, physically or from my connections or growing up. So I'm like, cool. I will learn how to think and I will outwork everybody, right? And so, I mean, that's really how we got started down the entrepreneurship path. But really coming from that place of just feeling like I don't fit in here, so I'm going to go create a world where I get to decide if I fit in or not, right?
I like
That's
that.
awesome. That's fantastic. Um, so I can't help but notice that you have a Bitcoin behind you. I'm just curious, like total side note, like what's the story behind that?
Do you want the 10,000 hour version? No, I'm kidding. I'm not a believer in Bitcoin. I am a like all in diehard. Like I sold all of my assets and put it all in Bitcoin. Like I am like 95% Bitcoin. I am like ride or die with the ship, complete and utter Bitcoin maxi. And I believe it's the future. So I have studied outside of money and like psychology, which I love money and psychology. Well, not the love of money. I love studying it, right? Like I love understanding it, right? Um, Bitcoin is probably the thing I've studied more than anything else. And so I am all in. Yeah, I'm a big fan.
Is it just Bitcoin or is it Ethereum as well or some of the other cryptos?
Um, I am a I am a crypto fan as well. I I really do. I come from the approach of there's Bitcoin and then there's crypto. Like technically, I understand they use the both underused, the blockchain technology. But I think they're two completely different classes. And so I personally am a believer in Bitcoin with my money. I don't own. I mean, I used to trade a bunch of meme coins and Ethereum and Solana and then all the other stuff and made a bunch of money, lost a bunch of money, all that. But like I believe in Bitcoin, and then I believe in the underlying technology of blockchain for the rest of crypto. I think that crypto will change the world in ways that we don't understand, not just financially, but also digital contracts and things. But I just don't think people understand it, and so I haven't studied any other crypto enough to be able to make an educated assessment on whether or not that crypto is worth its weight or worth what it is. But I absolutely know that Bitcoin is. And I always laugh when people are like, "Oh, it's $60,000. Like it's so expensive right now." I'm like, "No, yeah, no, 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 no. We are very, very cheap still." So, yeah,
That's interesting. I like that. I'm the same way, but I'm all in on real estate. So I get what you're saying. I have the same passion. And it's just something I understand. Like you said, I've studied it my whole life. I've been in real estate. And it's something I just get. So I'm just a big same thing for coming
And
in real
and it's
estate. So I
interesting with
totally
that
get
too,
it.
right? Because so do you guys know Brad Gibb?
Yes, very, yep.
Okay. So Brad's one of my best friends. Like just we're very, very close. We've done a lot of business together. He was kind of my first back in the day, like 4 years ago, my first like high ticket client with the Golden Mike method. Like he's kind of the one that actually I started the journey on, which is fascinating. But Brad's big in real estate, right? Wealth, money, real estate, debt, like all the whole things. And I've watched all his stuff. I think Brad is one of the smartest humans beings in the like certainly that I've ever met, right? I
Yes.
mean, I have nothing but utmost respect for him, right? But he doesn't get the Bitcoin thing yet, right? And so I started buying some real estate with him, or in his method, and then I went to him one day and I was like, dude, I just don't get it. I just don't understand real estate. I just don't get it. And I get Bitcoin. And he goes, I don't. But if you do, then great. Then invest in what you understand. And so I sold almost all. We still do own a couple properties because I have partnerships on them. But like all my stocks, all my Bitcoin. I mean, I'm sorry, all my real estate, and I put it all in Bitcoin because of that reason right there, which is I understand it, right? And like real estate conceptually makes sense to me. Like I need a place to live, but like the rest of the game just my brain couldn't comprehend it, and Bitcoin did. And so I'm curious, like, what's your stance on Bitcoin?
Oh, I have friends that invest in it, love it, and get it. Just for me, it's not, I'm probably because I'm an older generation. I'm 48 at this point. So I just, I haven't stood the time. Like you said, you haven't looked at the other platforms and blockchain. So it's like, hey, you don't feel as comfortable. And I think it really is a comfort thing. Once you start or you start to dabble in it, you have to understand it and read about it and learn it. I think you feel more comfortable when you invest because investing really it is speculative. But the more knowledge you have about anything in investing, it becomes more understandable and you can
Yeah.
invest in it with confidence. So that's probably where I'm at. Obviously, that's where you're at. So I totally get that mindset for sure.
Well, I hope 48's not old because that's man,
I
48
feel
can't be
great. I
old.
feel better I did 10 years ago, so I
Uh,
can't complain.
all right, that's good. That's good. Whenever anybody says that, they're like, I'm in my 40s, I'm old. I'm like, oh no, I just turned 30. And I'm like, 60 is the new 20, right? Yeah. I expect to work to the day I die. I love work. So hopefully 40 is not that old.
It's not
Amen to
for sure.
that. Um, so let's dive a little bit more into your golden mic method. Can you kind of describe to our audience what that is and kind of how it works?
Yeah, for sure. So to kind of pick up like rewind time back to, in the entrepreneurship journey, I think that I think we as entrepreneurs, we all like to think we have the unique story and unique journey and all that. I mean, I was just like anybody else in the entrepreneurship thing. I certainly felt like I was this one of a kind, unique thing, and I've certainly had those experiences. But for the most part, like I'm not that smart. I'm pretty dumb overall. Got into entrepreneurship because I wanted to be my own boss and make money, and then I got started in it, and I really sucked at it. Right, like I just didn't make any money. I was good at what I did, but I wasn't good at making money. I sold, tried to sell the 997 courses, selling Instagram stuff, and I ended up defaulting to kind of an agency style. It was like a services based offer because it was easier to sell, and I was selling it for $5,000. Right, like and that was kind of even a struggle there to get people to pay me $5,000 for it, and I couldn't figure it out. I vividly remember just being so frustrated because I'm like, I know my success is inevitable. Like, I don't care if it takes me 50 years, right? You know what I'm talking about? Like, we're entrepreneurs, right? Like, we're all like, we'll figure it out, right? But like, after like 2 or 3 years of it, you're like sitting there and you're like, what am I missing? Right? Like, what? I don't get it. And so I just remember being very frustrated, being very broke, and being like, okay, if I am going to go and actually have success, I need to learn from successful people. I need to learn from the people that have actually done it. I need to get not like read the book, not go to these, like I need to talk to them. But broke Josh was, didn't have $50,000 to go join a mastermind. And so I'm like, okay, what am I going to do? Right. Cause I will I would rather live under a bridge than go back to being, a job. Right. So I start this podcast, and the entire premise of the podcast was this: I'm going to go, and I don't have a billionaire Rolodex that I can call up, but I remember when I was in high school that I wrote a letter to the president of Do It Best, when I was 16 years old, asking him some questions. And because I was 16 years old and I gave him a good reason, he said yes. And I got to go down to the headquarters and got to meet with him. And so I was like, well, maybe if I reached out to a bunch of rich people and I offered to interview them, give them a platform, they'll say yes, right? Sure enough, that's what happened. And so my premise, and I think this was like the best thing I could have done without even realizing it, was I didn't start a podcast to try to amplify me and be the marketer or like try to sell my services, right? And I think that's what a lot of entrepreneurs do. And we can get into why that's a problem in a second, but like I did not do that. My goal was, how do I create a place where rich people, successful people, people with money will want to come talk to me that wouldn't come talk to me otherwise, right? And so I started that. I mean, we went and I started doing, I think Taylor Welch was my very first interview that I did, and then moved on and did that for 20 or 30 or 40 episodes. And somewhere around that 40th episode or so, I interviewed a guy by the name of Brad Gibb, actually, right? And we go and like, for those people that don't know Brad, I love Brad to death. He's so smart, but like he hates talking to people. He's very difficult to get a hold of. I've literally seen people like DM him, like, I will pay you $15,000 for an hour phone call. And he's just like, yeah, right? Like, I don't know what to do with this, right? Like he's in his world, right? He's focused. And so the fact that I even got him on the podcast was insane, right? Like I got him for 2 hours. And so we go and we have this 2 hour long interview and we get done. And then afterwards we're chatting and Brad goes, dude, Josh, like that was fun. Like, I like you. Like that was a really good time. Like I am actually interested in hiring you. I've heard some of your stuff with social media. I'd be interested in having you like come help us. Now keep in mind, like I'm selling stuff for $5,000, like full blown, like launch services at this point. So the inside of me was freaking out. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like this guy's so rich. Like, oh my gosh. Right. You know what I mean? And so, I was like, okay. And so I asked him a couple questions about like his problem and like all that. And I was like, all right, yeah. And he goes, can you send me something over tomorrow? Because I have a meeting with my team. And I'm like, yes, absolutely. Hang up, like freak out. But I looked at my sales process, my current sales process, right? And I'm like, a million funnel steps and upsells and downsells or whatever. And I was like, I would be embarrassed to send him to this, right? So I'm like, I'm not going to do that because it's like, I believe in my stuff, but I don't know what I'm doing, right? It's not working. So let me do something completely different. So I open up a Google Doc and I literally just in a 2-page Google Doc, and I've just put down like, hey, great combo. Here's like, you said you had this problem. Here's what we could do to fix it. Here's some results we've gotten. Let's talk, right? Like send it over to him the next day. And I kid you not, like with a couple days later, he texted me and was like, we're in. And later that week, he just wired me 30 grand. Like, you ever have those moments in life where you're like, I have no clue what just happened, but I need to do more of that? That was the moment for me, right? And it was the moment that I got introduced to a new world, because like I'd made $30,000, more money than I'd ever made before in one transaction without a sales call. Now, I'm not saying it always works that way, but like, what? Like that was more than my entire salary at my last job in one transaction without a sales call. And so from that moment on, I had been introduced to this world that there was a world of broke people and then there was a world of rich people, right? There were just these two worlds. There were two different realities, and I needed a bridge to get into this world and stay in this world over here. And it was the first time that I had like had this realization and actually experienced it. Like you hear I think we all like conceptually we look at masterminds or we look at rich people clubs and we're like, there's a bunch of rich people that all hang out in a cool kids club and we're not in it. You know what I'm saying? Right? Like I was like in it for the first time. Like I finally got a taste of it. And so that was what birthed the Golden Mike method. And I was like, okay, why did Brad become my friend? Like, why did Brad hire me? Right? Because number one, I had a platform that created an opportunity that allowed me to get the yes that I wouldn't have gotten without it. There's no way Brad talks to me without a podcast. He's too busy, right? People pay him $15,000 for an hour of his time and he's like, ugh, right? Like, so first I've got a platform. And then second, I learned this from Sam Ovens, right? And I think we've all heard it, but rich people buy from people that they trust. They buy from people that they know. They buy from their friends. They buy from people, not off of a Facebook ad, not off of a 5-day challenge, not off of a webinar, they buy from people that they feel like understand them and speak their language. And because I had given Brad a platform, we had this 2-hour conversation that made Brad sound smart. There was trust. And so by doing that and then making him an offer that was mutually beneficial, that opened up a world of a $30,000 opportunity. And so I'll to finish up the story, and then feel free to ask questions on it. From that moment on, I was like, I'm obsessed with this method, right? Like I want to just keep doing this. And so I've never run ads. Well, take that back. I've tried to run ads twice, and both times they failed so miserably that we made no sales, and it was just bad. So like I made my first $1 million off of the Golden Mike method. I made my second $1 million off of the Golden Mike method. And I made my third $1 million using the Golden Mike method to do JVs with people to go and fill my programs that, so that's the premise of the Golden Mike method. And that's how I got into this space. And now we've helped our clients do over 30 million bucks in sales from that.
That's awesome. That kind of leads my next question is kind of discovery phase. Like, how are folks discovering? I get Brad's story, you talk to him, but is that where you find most of your business, or is that where people are finding you, or how are people discovering you and what you're doing, I guess?
Yeah, the podcast. I mean, really, we have the podcast now, the Golden Mike, Think Different Theory at the time of it. I think there's an important piece of context that is actually probably the most important pre-frame of this conversation. And perhaps I should have started with that, which is this. I don't teach people how to build businesses. I don't know how to build businesses. I'm learning. I teach people how to make money. Like that's what I know how to do. I know how to sell stuff. And so my objective, and we say this all the time, is I'm not going to teach you how to build a $100 million company, but I can teach you how to increase your personal income to such a way to where you can make your first $1 million in profit, right? And so my approach to business is freedom-based first. Like I know what it is like to not have any freedom. Like I know what it is like to make every single decision due to lack of money, to feel completely and utterly trapped, to feel like you're suffocating because you don't have options. And to me, the most important thing, and I think for a majority of entrepreneurs, particularly in the online world, what we want is not to have a $100 million company. What we want is to be able to make enough money to where we can do what we want to do, when we want to do it, with who we want to do it, doing work that we find impactful, and to where we don't have to worry about finances on a daily basis. That's it. Like, I can't remember the last time that I looked at the price of gas or groceries or, going out to eat on date night. But I remember 5 years ago or 6 years ago when I could barely afford taking my wife to McDonald's, right? Like, and so the Golden Mike method premise is how do I create personal freedom through doing work that I find meaningful? And I personally believe that services, not coaching, actually, and I'm a big fan of coaching, but I believe that services are the best way to do that, right? If you're just starting out, because there's so much margin of error, like you can figure stuff out as you go. And so the way that people find out about me, the way that I approach my marketing and my sales process is I believe that money runs in networks, right? Like in everything that I've studied before, like I was just in a broke network. I was in a network of people that did not have money, a network of beginners. And then I found Brad, and Brad's rich, and all of Brad's friends are rich, right? And I was like, oh, so I don't need to have marketing. I don't need to be everywhere. I need to be in front of the right people. And so relationships and networking became the key element of how I approach business. And the Golden Mike method is essentially that. It's strategic relationships. It's a strategic approach to getting in networks of money and success with people that you want to do business with. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
That's fantastic. So that then begs the question to me, as you go through and you do this Golden Mike method and you're able to tap into a new network where you now have potentially wealthy clients that you could be working with, what are some of the things that you would recommend as I'm assuming services you said are the things that you would promote to them. So what are some of those things that you see are very consistently the needs of those wealthy individuals that you could step in and offer them?
That's a great question. So you guys know who Dan Henry is?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So Dan's a character, man. And I'm pretty good friends with him, but I purchased his $100,000 2-day VIP day. It was one-on-one for 2 days for 100 grand, like a real 100,000, right? Like not like a internet marketing 100,000, right? And I flew down to his house in Costa Rica. You take like a helicopter to this private helicopter pad on the top of a mountain to his mansion, and like it's just insane, right? And we're there on night one. It's probably, I don't know, 5 o'clock in the afternoon or something like that. And he asked me, he goes like, okay, Josh, like, tell me what you sell. And so I'm like, well, I help people, build their following. He's like, no, stop. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, try again. And I'm like, I help people get leads and I help people build influence. He's like, oh my gosh, dude, stop. He's like, all right, dude, I've made like $50 million online. Would you like to know the only three things that people buy? The only three things. And I'm like, no, Dan, I paid you $100,000 for you not to tell me that. Like, duh, yes, of course, right? Like, and so he's like, okay. He's like, Josh, understand this. People buy three things and three things only. People want to make more money, they want to have more sex, or they want to look hot. That's it. And like, it's Dan, right? So like context to that. But like when you're sitting in Dan's mansion, you paid him $100,000, stuff hits different. And what that taught me though, and what he went on to explain was understand what you're selling, understand the market that you're in, and understand that if you just do that, that's the only thing that matters. So I'm in the wealth space. I sell money, right? And I'm guessing you guys are probably in that space as well. You're in the wealth space. Most of the people that we work with are. At the end of the day, your client does not want whatever you're selling. They want money. That's it. And when we have a program, a coaching program for the Golden Mike Method. And we brought in 20 new clients on a launch that we did. And we surveyed all of them on the opening call. And I said, all right, if you got done over the next 90 days and you had an amazing podcast, right? You had good episodes, good content or whatever, but you didn't make a single dollar, or you got done with this 90 days and you didn't have a podcast, but you had $100,000 more in it. Which one would you choose? 100% of them, 100% of them said they'd take the money, right? Every single one. They bought a podcast program though, but did they? Right? See what I'm saying? So my point with all this is when you're selling to wealthy people, and if you sell wealth, understand that wealthy people want to take their money, give it to you, and have you make them more money. That's it. And Brad's paid me $350,000. That's a lot of money that Brad has paid me. I've made him over 2 million, right? So like, is that a good trade-off? It's a great trade-off, right? And when I asked Brad why he keeps buying from me, he's like, two things. One, because you actually go and get the field wet, right? He grew up on a farm too. And they hired a guy to come lay pipes in the field, and they came and laid all the pipes, and then they turned it on. It didn't work. And his dad's like, we hired you to come fix this. And he's like, you hired us to lay the pipes. And his dad goes, no, I hired you to get the field wet, right? He's like, Josh, you get the field wet. And number two is I know that every single time that I give you money, I'm going to make more of it. And so my advice to anyone out there that wants to get into the world of the wealthy is, first off, understand more than anything else, they play a different game. They speak a different language. They have a different mindset. They don't care about money nearly as much as you do. They care about time. They care about other things, but they're very intentional. And so understand that the language and the mindset and the thoughts and the false beliefs that you have over here in this world, like I had so many false beliefs about money. Like I could not fathom a world where somebody had $30,000 sitting around to where they could just wire that to me, right? Like that wasn't a thing in my brain until it was. And then I realized that like lots of people have that, right? Lots of wealthy clients have that kind of cash sitting around. And if you can take that and multiply it, they're happy to invest it. Like I have that now, right? I'm like, oh, I would gladly give someone $30,000 if they could make me 100 or 400 or whatever, right? And then secondly is understand what you sell to them. You either sell money, you sell happiness, or you sell looking better or feeling better, right? Depending upon in health. That's it. And so when you come at it with that approach, and your language and your speech and how you present things to these clientele, these wealthy clients, is focused on that, as long as they can see the path and they trust you, they will give you any amount of money that you ask for, as long as you hold up on your end of the bargain.
I love that. I love that. I think it really is. It does boil it down to my mind, common sense. Like you said, there's a different language. There's a different language they talk and speak, and I agree with that 100%. I talk to people almost every day, and it's just a different language. They don't have the concerns and worries we have.
Yes.
Much different concerns and worries. And one of the things that we talked to Brad at Funnel Hacking Live, this is a brilliant guy, as you said.
Brilliant.
And people were just scared. People come to him with fear because they wanted to have wealth preservation. They wanted to protect what they had built. And Brad was kind of the go-to guy in his circle. And I see that. It's a different language. They weren't worried about, X number of dollars, like you said, taking your date to McDonald's. They were worried about taking care of their family for generations.
Yeah.
And it's a whole different language, and what they're speaking and saying and doing is a whole different thought process than most people are. So I totally agree with that. And And one of the things, so looking at what you do, I do see the value, a ton of value there, what you offer and kind of what you're putting together, but help us understand your business and kind of your audience and what value you're giving. I do see the value, but can you help us kind of tangibly see the value in your customer experience and what you give them?
Yeah, for sure. And I'm going to go back to the point about Brad, and this is a perfect transition into the question you just asked there, which is, Tony Robbins said, and I had this quote on my phone for years, the strongest force in the human personality is the need to stay consistent with how we define ourselves, right? Another way to put it is identity, right? Like identity is insanely powerful. And so when I got into the internet marketing space, when I got into social media, I saw myself as I help people grow followers, or I help people, I'm good at getting likes on the internet. And wealthy people aren't buying that. All right. When I shifted my identity, like actually, like when I could look myself in the mirror and actually believe it, where I now see myself as I make people money. That's my business. Like I help people get paid. There is not a scenario in my head where if somebody gives me money and they do what I tell them to do, or if it's a service they were honest with me, where they do not make more money than what they pay me. It's impossible. It doesn't happen. But that identity, that the feeling of insecurity and the feeling of self-worth issues and the feeling of imposter syndrome and the feeling of like that you're not enough and you're feeling like, what if I don't know? Like those are crippling, right? Like, and for me, getting coaches, getting mentors, like I've spent 400,000 real dollars, like actually like on a real dollars of my own money on coaching and getting mentors to shift the identity, to step into this world. And by shifting that identity, like you see yourself differently, you see the world differently, you show up differently, you yourself shift. And when you do that, right, like you become exponentially more powerful. You become exponentially of greater value. And it starts with this internal shift, right? And so to set up or to segue into the question that you asked, which is, what's the value? What's our business model? It's funny. People think I teach podcasting, and I like to joke. I say, we are a sales company that happens to teach podcasts. We are not a podcast company that happens to teach sales, right? Like I do not come to me if you're like, what's the best way to launch a podcast to get views? No clue. I mean, I could figure it out, right? But like my objective is I want to help empower entrepreneurs to be free. Like I have a message for entrepreneurs, which is you can be free. I know you don't think you can be free because I didn't think I could be free. I said I wanted freedom, but I literally didn't think that I could live in a world where I didn't worry about finances on a daily basis, where I didn't worry about what people thought about me on a daily basis, where I was free in my faith and my family and my relationship. I didn't think that world existed. It was make-believe, but it's not. It's very real. But that starts with you understanding who you are at this core level. And in the world of entrepreneurship, the way we measure value is dollars. And so like what we do and what we help people with the Golden Mike method is we help entrepreneurs get paid, right? Like that's our objective. How to take your services and turn them into high ticket services, like $10,000, $15,000, $25,000, $50,000, even $100,000 and go sell them to wealthy clients. Because the reason that wealthy client is so ridiculously important, like, and there's a distinct difference between this world of broke and this world of wealth. Okay. I don't just mean wealthy with dollars. I mean wealthy with thinking. I mean wealthy with time. I mean wealthy with relationships. I mean wealthy with getting around people that you want to go and hang out with. And my life changed, and I'll ask you, like, do you think your life would, is if the people that you wanted to be your mentors and friends and learn from you wanted to be like, if they became your clients, if they were paying you tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of dollars, do you think that would force you to level up? Do you think that would force you to think differently? Do you think your life might change? The opportunities might change? The answer for me and for all of our clients has been yes. And so in a very tangible way, we work on this identity. We work on this internal belief and mindset, but then also have a very practical, very principle-based, very data-backed driven approach with the Golden Mike method to turn your microphone into a sales machine for wealthy clients. We are quality over quantity because it's hard to scale quantity with one-on-one conversations. And so, I mean, I think that's really what we do in a nutshell. And our clients, I just actually posted this yesterday. We launched the Golden Mike method to the public 8 months ago. And since then, about $3 million in deals sold, $1.7 million cash collected without running a single paid ad, without running a single webinar, and averaging a 50% or higher close rate, with the average deal being $10,000 or more.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So, I happened to notice the other day that you were getting ready to run an event this weekend. I saw it on, I believe, Facebook. So to me, that strikes me as one of those like nurturing events where you're looking to basically educate people and showcase what it is that you do and how you can help them and present that value in a very organized way. So can you speak more on what nurturing events you do in order to actually add value up front and help people understand what it is that you have going on and then transition into that more sales side of things?
Yeah, it's a fantastic question. Um, it's interesting. The offer that I sold to people for 3 years that made my first and second million was workshops and 5-day challenge launches, tied with Facebook groups and that. But basically I sold one-to-many selling one-on-one. I here's the marketing version of this is I got rich by selling one-to-one, right? Like I made my first and second million selling one-to-one. I love the one-to-one selling model. I think it's way more customizable to the person. I think you do a relationship. And if you sell services, I think one-on-one's the best. I've now reached a point where our business model moving forward is group coaching, and some one-on-one coaching too, but it's more of a coaching model. And so we're testing right now, to be totally frank, right? We're testing different approaches with the best way to go and nurture and provide value. I think that one of the things that I've noticed with services is you're giving people this experience, right? In coaching, you're giving them an experience as well, but it's energy and momentum and belief play much more of a massive role. And so bringing people in groups or in cohorts or whatnot, there's value in that, I believe, as well, versus just one-on-one. And so I'm a big believer that if people understand frameworks and understand principles and understand beliefs, right? Like understand the approach, that they're going to make the decisions that's best for them. I'm not in the business of selling people anything. I don't believe in selling, ironically. I believe in solving people's problems. And if you can show someone how you can solve their problem and they genuinely can see how it's the best decision for them, I think that they're going to make the decision that's best for them, right? And so the purpose of this event particularly is I'm starting to blow up my brand, right? I've taken the last 2 years to be not invisible, but certainly less visible than I have been in the past, right? Fixing past relationships, getting mentoring, building a business, getting results, building the principles. And now we've got something that's working immensely well. And so now it's time for me to come back and go, okay, like what content are we going to put out? Like, are we going to do workshops? Are we going to do challenges? Are we going to do webinars? Are we going to continue to, what does that look like? And so the event this weekend is, I'm noticing shifts in the market that I've been studying. We've got the Golden Mike method that I think like specifically addresses a lot of what's going on in the market. So I think it's working so well right now because it's so relationship based, so trust based rather than, interruption or like big claim based. Right. And so that event that we're doing, it's just a workshop, 4 hours long. My clients will be there. My already paid clients will be there. And then also new people coming in. And so we're in a testing phase right now to see what messages are landing, what's resonating, what people's issues are. And that's kind of the approach with that. And so I think you'll see a lot more one-to-many selling from me in the future, but only because there was 3.5 years and millions of dollars worth of data, one-on-one selling, right? And learning the actual, I mean, I've done over probably multiple thousand sales calls at this point, right? And like worked with clients to the tunes of $30 million in sales generated, to where I feel like I am just now starting to have a grasp of a group of people rather than an individual one-to-one. So that's kind of our approach with that. Yeah.
I love that. I think it's good because the person you are now is the person you're going to be a year from now. I really believe that theory. And obviously, I see that in your case, Josh. I love it. But obviously, to change, to grow, you talk about mentoring, talk about coaching now is kind of what you're looking at going into. For you, kind of who kind of got you launched? Obviously, you had an entrepreneur mindset coming from your youth, but kind of getting into the Golden Mike method, those kind of things. Who kind of steered you in that direction? What's been one of your biggest mentors? You go back and see that was something that really committed things for you to do something different in your life.
Oh man, the list would be long of people that I learned from, but I think that I've had 5 core mentors in 5 areas of my life. So one for each area, right? And my original mentor were my mom and dad, right? Like, shout out to my mom and dad. Shout out to the parents out there, like that have stayed together and that love their kids and invest in them. My parents don't have money. My parents don't come from they're not glamorous. I mean, they live on a farm in Indiana, right? But like they taught me hard work and they taught me morality and they taught me how to think and to take responsibility for my life. All right. And so, I mean, at the end of the day, like that's where it starts. Shifting into the business world, the first person that opened my eyes to the internet world that made me realize that, whoa, I could not just make some money, but that I could change lives, that I could have an impact, and that I could literally live something out is Russell Brunson. And I mean, the OG GOAT. I mean, I am a diehard fan. I am like people make fun of me. They're like, "Oh, you're a Russell Brunson fanboy." I'm like, yes, I am. Right? That man changed my life time and time and time again. Expert Secrets, I've read 17 times. And Russell gave me a lens. He gave me an identity. He gave me a way to view the world. He opened up my eyes. And Russell hasn't taught me the most specifics or the most ninja hacks or whatever. Russell gave me a belief and he gave me this lens. And so in business, Russell. And then personally, like I've had some really low moments. I've dealt with immense feelings of insecurity to where my entire identity was wrapped up in the amount of likes that I got on an Instagram post. Like directly correlated my mood for the day was directly correlated to how much engagement I got on Instagram, right? I've had just such feelings of imposter syndrome and like I wasn't good enough and that nobody cared and all that. And Katie Richardson, like that woman completely and utterly changed my life. She calls herself a clarity coach. I call her an identity coach. Like I don't even know what I paid her $100,000, right? Like actual $100,000. I don't even know what she taught me, but like the transformation of understanding who I am, that would be Katie Richardson for sure. We didn't talk business. We didn't talk Facebook ads or funnels or sales. It was that personal identity. And then Brad Gibb, money, like not marketing, not business, money. Like what is wealth? What is money? How does it all work? How to create long-term, indestructible, untouchable wealth for generations. I cannot speak more highly of him. He's one of my best friends. And yeah. And then finally, and I think this is as of recently, when it comes to just marketing and one-to-many selling, like for me personally, Dan Henry. I know that Dan Henry gets a bad rap a lot of times, but like that dude knows his shit. And pardon my language, but like he knows what he's talking about. And like he's very, very good. And so the $100,000 that I paid him was the fastest turnaround ROI that I've ever made. I paid him $100,000 and within 60 days I had made $250,000. Right? Like insanity. And so Dan taught me the literal skills, not like the mindset or identity piece or, belief. I knew I could. I'm like, okay, who's the best? Like who actually knows what they're talking about? Like the ninja level, Dan. And so I think those five people, I guess six with both my parents, but you get it, would be the five people that I think have coached and mentored my life and shifted it to what it is today.
Wow, that's lovely. I can say personally that Chris is one of those individuals for myself, and so we formed a really good bond. It's a lot of what we would consider to be divine intervention. And so like I literally was shifting gears in my own business. I was trying, failing, doing stock market offers, all kinds of stuff like that. And then I decided, you know what? At this point, I've learned more about marketing than I feel propelled to actually share that kind of stuff rather than doing the stock market stuff. And because it fluctuates and I don't, economic turmoil, whatever. So the bottom line is that I started cold calling real estate agents, and that's how I got a hold of Chris.
Oh, no way.
Randomly.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
And so I'm curious to know some of the backstories of how it is that maybe divine intervention played a role in your story and how it is that, through faith and things, you were able to move through those moments of extreme adversity and get to where you are today.
I don't know if I've ever been asked that question. That's a good question. Feel free to follow up. I'm going to answer it relatively short and then feel free to push. I love Jesus, man. I'm a believer, and I grew up in the church. I walked away from the church for a while, but like when I recommitted my life to Christ 18 months ago, like I gave Christ everything, right? Like he's the king. And in that moment, I think that for the first time in my life, I realized that there was a divine, all powerful being that wanted what was best for me and that never left my side and was with me there every single step of the way. I think you'd be hard pressed to find someone that is more pro personal responsibility and free will in their belief than I am, right? I believe everything is your fault. You got to take responsibility for everything. But there's undeniable evidence and a belief that there's also that divine being, right? That Christ that wants what's best for me. And so I think to say anything else than all of it being divine would be a lie. I do think though that probably if I were to single out one singular event or one singular like thing with divine intervention, it would be meeting my wife. My wife she is the most incredible human being. I love her. I adore her, right? Like she's incredible. And I was living in Omaha, Nebraska at the time. That's where she's from. She had just come back. She lived in the Virgin Islands when Irma came, wiped out her whole house, like wiped out all of her possessions, everything. I mean, she had nothing. She lands back in Omaha, and I'm supposed to move to Chicago like a week later, right? I had toured an apartment up there, 40th floor or whatever, overlooking the Chicago Bears Stadium or whatever. And there was just this voice inside, like that's this weird, like, don't do it, right? Like, don't move to Chicago, right? And so all I had to do was sign the paperwork. And for whatever reason, I did not sign the paperwork that weekend. I flew back home, and like a week or two later, I met her. That's I don't know. I would say that's pretty divine. And the man that I am today, the leader that I am today, the entrepreneur that I am today, the husband that I am today can be directly attributed to my wife. I mean, she's incredible. And so I would say that that's probably the biggest, the biggest proof of that.
I love that. I love those kind of stories. I love hearing about people and how they met. I just love relationships. I've got a background in counseling.
And the funny thing is, we've met at a bar, dude, and I don't drink. And so that's the funny. So I don't drink alcohol. And she was the general manager. Like, she literally landed at home, and then within like a month of working at the location as a bartender, they promoted her to manager. And then they're like, "Do you want to be the GM of this other location?" And I was a regular at that bar. I went there every single day because I'm a single dude. I don't want to cook, right? So it was 2 minutes from my house. They had great food, and I'd go there every single day. And then she transferred over, and like I was never like I never asked any. I'm not really that much of like a date. I had been dating at the time, right? So like I'd never asked any bartenders out. I never hit on anybody. I was just up there working online, right? But I saw her, and I was like, "Hey, you want to hang out sometime?" And she goes, "Sorry, I can't date regulars. It's the rule." And I went, bummer. And so literally the next day, I drove up there. I picked up my phone. I called in a to-go order in the parking lot, walked into the bar and was like, "Hey, you want to hang out sometime?" And she's like, "I told you I can't date regulars." And I went, "Oh, I'm not a regular. I'm just here to pick up my to-go order." And I did that every day for like a month. And she finally agreed to go out with me.
I love that. Hey,
Yeah.
it works, man, right? It works.
Yeah.
So I love it. That's good. Getting in, one of the things I know we talk about a lot of things in our podcast, but one of the things I think you're pretty real, Josh, which I appreciate, just being a real person is what's going on. One of the things I know we all hit this, you talked a little bit about imposter syndrome, things like that, but what do you think would be one kind of hurdle or one of your biggest mistakes, that you got some resistance in your business? Because we all get it. John and I was talking this week. I've been super sick, but I'm just plugging along, and I could just stay in bed. But what good would that do? So, for you, what's been some resistance or one big hurdle you say really had to overcome as you were getting some attraction in your business?
Yeah. That's probably the most important question for success that you've asked the whole podcast too. I'll answer it talking to old Josh, and I think probably where a lot of entrepreneurs are at. And then I'll also answer it current day right now of what I'm going through and learning. The biggest mistake that I made in business was not focusing on one offer for one person that got me paid. Like this idea that I thought that other things mattered more than making money in business. Money's not the end goal. It's a tool, but it is the measuring stick. And I vividly remember sitting there one day, and I'd watched like 20 YouTube videos because, that's what you do when you don't know what you're doing, right? And every one of the YouTube videos was like, scale your business, grow your business. I'm going to help you scale your business. And I got done watching them, and I looked at myself in the mirror and was like, I don't have a business. I don't even know what the frick I'm doing. Like, I literally just have a skill. That's it. That's all I have. And so when I stopped lying to myself and was like, "Okay, Josh, you don't have a business. Don't act like you do. You don't have system. You don't have an operation. You don't have an SOP. You don't have any, you have an LLC. great job, dude. Right? And I was like, okay, cool. I got one job, take my service and go sell it for lots of money. That's it. Right. And like, if I would have done that 5 years beforehand, I'd be so much further along. Right. And I think that's probably the biggest mistake that I made. And I think, a lot of entrepreneurs probably fall into that trap. But like for me specifically, like I just waited way too dang long to recognize that like you have to do the work. You have to fall, like you have to do the steps. You can't shortcut it. So stop acting like you're further along than you are, Josh, right? And do the work. That would be the biggest mistake that I made early on. And then, does that make sense?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then one of the things I'm learning right now, as in like the last like 2 months, is yo, what the frick took you so long to build a team, dude? Holy cow. Oh my gosh. Like I am just learning about how to build a real team. I just hired an integrator, like a full-time, like she's legit, right? Like I went for top talent, not beginner. And on day two, on day two, I had Dan Henry, COO, interviewer, because I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing, right? So he interviewed her for like an hour and 45 minutes, and he's like, hire her. And I'm like, okay. And then I found out how much she was, and I was like, are you sure? And he goes, hire her. And I'm like, all right. Day two, we got done with our meeting, and I looked at her and I was like, you're the boss. Whatever you said, like, you run the company. Best decision. I mean, the craziness. So building a team of really talented people. We have 3 of us now. And it's just like it's a complete game changer. And yeah.
That's awesome. Chris is a big proponent of the book Who Not How, and I
Yep.
feel like that's exactly what you're leaning into right now. And so you said you started that about 2 months ago, is that correct?
That's when I started looking for an integrator and like actually started finding the power of a team. Yeah. I
So
hired
what
my
would you
integrator a month and a half ago, I think. Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
what would you say has been the biggest return so far in the short window that you've had that? Like return on investment, I mean.
Everything, dude. Oh my gosh. Every every person that I'd hired up until this point, I basically had to babysit and like I had to do all the thinking for them anyway. And I was like, this is stupid. I'm paying someone money to do work and I still have to do the work. And I literally didn't know that anyone else exists. I didn't know that there was anything different than that. And it's funny that my integrator now, her name's Sarah, and she's awesome. And she'll laugh if she watches this, she'll laugh, right? Because I've never met someone who is she's so detailed, she's so smart, like she's so good at what she does, she's great with people, and so terrible at making money. And I was like, I don't understand. And Joe's like, that's why you need her, right? Because she gets everything except for this piece, and you're good at that piece. And so the way that Joe described it, and we're reading the book Rocket Fuel right now, which is a great one to do it. But like, she's a second brain. I don't have to think anymore. Like I can focus on just doing my thing. And perfect example, 2 days ago, it happened 2 days ago. I got on with my assistant and I was like, hey, all right, we got to do, this, and this or whatever. And she goes, oh, that's all done. I'm like, I know, but like, we have to like, actually, she's like, no, you don't understand. Like it's built, it's done. I'm like, what do you mean? And she pulls it and like, it's all there. Like the SOPs were all there. The whole system's attracting. I'm like, how did this, she's like, oh yeah, Sarah I'm like, I didn't even tell them how. And she's like, well, she knew how to that, right? Like she knows what to do even before I know what to do. And she knows how to do it better than I know how to do it and can run the company to where like, I finally feel like I have a person on my team that like has my back, right? And that like wants what's best for the company. Now I pay her a very good amount of money to do that, but also the return on that is like, I want to make, I've been underpaid before. The last job that I had, I was very underpaid, right? And I was like, okay, I will pay people enough to make them incentivized to want to do good work. And I really, really believe in paying people well, right? And so like when you have that and when you have someone that like they're in abundance, they're not in scarcity, they're not worried about how they're going to pay their bills, like they can focus on this. You've got someone on your team that literally frees up 80% of your workload on stuff that you didn't want to do anyway. At least that's by my experience. Yeah.
I love that. You're really hitting into, we talk about Sarah and your assistant and kind of hitting in. One of the things I'm a big believer in, John mentioned Who Not How, the book, but unique abilities. Everybody has superpowers and what they're really good at. And I really believe there's only 1 or 2 things you're really good at. I've tried to do a lot of things and wear a lot of hats, but I know like connecting with people, talking to people, sales is kind of my thing. It just is.
Yep.
So looking at that with you, like what did you say is kind of your unique ability, your superpower? And then once you realize it, you're kind of describing a little bit, how are you getting those things off your plate and what are you really doing to focus on what you're really good at?
Yeah. I love that you asked that question because I wish every entrepreneur and every coach or guru that was on a podcast was asked this, because I'm like, then we would just know what to follow them for and ignore everything else that they teach, right? Do not follow me for business advice. I don't know how to build a business. Don't follow me for team advice. I'm just sharing my experience. I will tell you this. I'm very, very good at selling stuff, right? I'm very good at making money. And I'm very good at teaching people how to do that, right? Because I've dedicated my life literally for the last 7 or 8 years to studying psychology and persuasion and like value creation and like the ability to go and sell non-physical products specifically, whether that's services or coaching or whatever. I'm very good at that. And then second is I believe, and this is a double-edged sword, I believe that I have an incredible ability that when I believe something, like actually believe it, that I can take immense criticism and be unwavered by it, because I'm able to sit down and ask questions and have conversations and look at things objectively. And like, even if I disagree with someone, respect their opinion. And I've done over 400 podcast interviews now at this point, where I'm like episode 4 or something or whatever. Like after 400 episodes of asking questions and having conversations and framing things and whatever, and understanding like belief patterns and how people get to things, like I feel like I have a pretty good understanding of my own beliefs. And so while I would consider myself radically open-minded, that if I were presented with new information, I will happily update my opinion on the things that I know to be true. I mean, Elon Musk is probably one of my biggest heroes in the world. Elon Musk could look me in the eye and be like, you're wrong on this. And if I actually believed it, I'll take a perfect example, Jesus, right? Like Elon Musk could look me in the eye and be like, you're wrong about Jesus. And I'm like, I love everything that you say. You can attack me for it. I'm not going to change my belief on that. I've done the research, present me evidence, right? So I think that ability to be committed to knowing what you believe and then being able to just like take the criticism of it is a superpower that is incredibly undervalued, but I'm realizing that very few people have that. Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yep.
So, as we're coming to a close on this episode of the podcast, one thing that I've been wanting to do a little bit more of on here is asking people, we're in a unique part of humanity where we have the ability to record video and put it out there, and it'll be around long after we are. And so, one of the things that I'm really curious to ask people is like, given everything that you have experienced and know at this point in your life, what is the one thing that you would give to humanity in terms of advice or life experience or something that really just represents all of the knowledge that you've attained to today to then give to people in that capacity?
I asked a very similar question at the end of every one of my episodes. Great question. I'm a dumb farm kid. Don't listen to me. So I will say this. Solomon in the Bible was the wealthiest, most wisest, and most knowledgeable person to ever live, right? I mean, outside of Jesus, right? I mean, this is biblical. He asked God for wisdom and knowledge, and he gave it to him, became the most successful man. Wealth, fame, money, power, women, all of it. And at the end of Deuteronomy, in his words to the world, he says, let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep his commandments. Or this is the entire duty of man, or the whole duty of man. That would be my advice. Fear God and keep his commandments, right? Study Jesus, get to know him. Money is fun. It's great. Having money is so much better than being broke, right? I love everything that comes with it. I like entrepreneurship. I like success and teaching and all the things, right? I like the cars and the travel. I love it all. Nothing comes close to Jesus and to fearing God and keeping his commandments. So that would be my advice, not because it's my advice, but because it's the wisest man who ever lives advice.
Those are good words. I would totally piggyback that. I think that's how you live a wise life, really. So
Yeah.
it's awesome. So I just really appreciate your time today. I know
Yeah,
we
this is
met
fun.
live. I saw you. We interviewed Brad, talked to him a little bit just for a short interview, and definitely saw how you guys' relationship. You guys were buddies and friends, and really appreciate who Brad was and talking to him for a little bit. But seeing you in your heart, you just seemed like you really enjoyed the whole thing and the experience of Funnel Hacking Live. But
Oh,
just being
I loved
here,
it, dude.
it just seemed like you enjoyed
It
life.
was the best. All
I
these
just
people
know that.
they go on there and they're like, I got my 2 Comma Club, or I spoke on stage, and when it was done, it like really wasn't that. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about, dude. I did that stage, I spoke on that, walked off. I was like, this is the best day ever, right? It was so much fun. So yeah.
That's awesome. Well, I definitely think that you're kindred spirits with John. We love life and we love people like us. So getting around people like us is exciting. And I appreciate your time today. I really do, Josh. Thanks for your
Yeah, of
time.
course.
Thanks for
Thanks for having me on.
sharing.
It was good. It was fun. Thank you.
It was fun.
Of
Thank
course.
you.
So if you can let our audience know where they can follow you or reach out if they want to do business with you or anything of that nature, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, joshforty.com. I have a very simple site on there, but all the links are there. With the podcast on there, the Golden Mic, it'll be linked there in the YouTube channel. And then I'm very active on social media, Facebook and Instagram primarily, at Josh Forti, JOSHFORTI. Hit me up on either one of those, or if you comment on stuff, it's not hard to get me into a debate, right? So we can chat.
Fantastic. Thank you so much again. Appreciate it.